Bird of Prey 5. El Karuga. Qapla!
I'm going to take this opportunity, however, to suggest that we all hail Karuga. That's all I'm saying.
Forgive me, Doctor. I'm receiving a number of distress calls. I don't doubt it.
Y'all remember to tip your waitresses. Have a mighty fine night.
If you come in peace, surrender or be destroyed. If you're here to make war, we surrender.
Both good. The important thing is I'm meeting new people.
When the appointed hour arrives, the Marauders will deactivate their cloaking devices and begin transporting Klingon shock troops directly to the landing zone.
Landing zone? Where? Tell me.
Why not? Your feeble weapons will be useless against us. We will kill all your males and take your females to mate with.
All right. Now the Federation's taking over, whether you like it or not. You people, you've been running this planet like a piecework factory. From now on, it's going to be under one roof. You're going to run it like a business. And that means you're going to make a profit.
Look at these 3 words written larger than the rest, with a special pride never written before or since. Tall words, proudly saying, "We the people."
Hi, I'm Nicole DeBoer. I played Lieutenant Ezri Dax on DS9, and I welcome you to Bird of Prey 5 channel. Hail Karoga.
Hello world, it's Bird of Prey 5, Qapla, and welcome to Star Trek Enterprise Wednesday for June 21st, 2023. Today we'll be watching Season 2, Episode 12, The Catwalk. And this episode originally premiered December 18th, 2002. Welcome, Resolute Germ, to the panel. Qapla.
Qapla, Bird.
And welcome, everybody in the chat. 47 Yorktown was first. Says Catwalk. Porthos will not be happy. Star Trek Nitpickers has got to go to work, but Qapla All. Qapla, Star Trek Nitpickers. And Nitpickers puts in some custom channel emojis. Captain, fan of nerds, says hello, Captain. Richie Poole says Tuvok. Welcome, Richie. And puts in 2 alpacas. John DeMarco says greetings, everyone. Greetings, John. Yvette says good evening, Bird, and everyone, and a good evening to the lovely Yvette. Joseph Dredd says hail, and Qapla. Qapla, Joseph Dredd. Tiki of Doom is in the house. Qapla, Tiki. Jim's Landscape LLC, Commodore Productions, says hello, and bumping a fan film with a link. And Admiral Teague is in the house with a $2 super sticker, his favorite super sticker of a chicken man and in a cape with a little pigeon or something looking up lovingly at him. Qapla, Admiral Teague. Thank you for the super sticker. Dan Ben says hi. Welcome, Dan Ben. And Jim's Landscape says hail to Captain Nerd. Indeed. So this episode is The Catwalk. Previously was Precious Cargo. It's again aired December 18th, 2002. Directed by Mike Vehar, I believe it's pronounced. It's a J. I believe he's a Vajar. It's probably Vehar. Written by Mike Sussman and Phyllis Strong. This was written by Mike Sussman and Phyllis Strong, who also wrote the episode Dead Stop. And Mike Vehar directed many episodes of Star Trek. This was the 4th time he directed a script by Sussman and Strong. And welcome, Admiral Teague, to the panel. Qapla.
Hail, Bird of Prey 5. This is the best thing I could think of to do to spend the star date I will be born on in 200 more years.
Is that your birthday?
It will be when I'm born in a few hundred years. Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's, yeah, a few hundred more trips around the sun and it'll be my birthday.
But in actuality,
it's my birthday.
The human being's birthday?
It's the human being who portrays Admiral Teague's birthday as well. Yes, I was born on this day in 1653 in Scotland.
Awesome. I feel like I should sing you a happy birthday.
Damn it. Other people have birthdays. We shouldn't treat mine like a funeral, right?
No, so we should treat it like a birthday.
Go ahead if you want. I would love to hear that.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Admiral Teague. Happy birthday to you.
Of my friend, thank you.
I don't know how to end it.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Of my friend Bird of Prey 5, of all I can say of, oh, thank you, Mom of Prey.
And Mom of Prey also. Yeah.
I want to say of my friend Bird of Prey 5, of all renditions of Happy Birthday I've heard, his was the most Klingon. Thank you. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful.
A great tribute.
It was. And I had a great time singing the Star Trek theme last week, although I couldn't make it out when I listened to it. I think I blew up the microphone.
It sounded fine. Everybody loved it. I
love this song.
So the Catwalk first aired on UPN December 18th, 2002, with a 3.0 rating, 5 share, to an audience of some 4.73 million viewers, which would be the biggest hit ever if they could get anywhere close to that on their streaming service these days. Anyway, this particular episode, they said it epitomized. I know the word, but I can't pronounce it. Of what the show is about, the crew operating at the very edge of their known knowledge and technology, and praised its fascinating premise.
It's epitomized.
Epitomized. Thank you. Yeah, I speak English. I really
do. We're both from Queens, right? Or we're from New York City. We do this stuff with our language, and also, don't you feel enormously constrained that you can't gesticulate more? I feel like people need to just see only my hands when I talk.
Yes, the fact that I'm not on camera has reduced my vocabulary by 25%.
If you could see the gestures that we were making while we're trying to say this without using it's so, I feel like people lose 30%.
So
this is a good episode, though.
Prevailing wisdom out there is that this episode is a 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
so.
And I looked at Precious Cargo. UI and Captain Fandom Nerd gave it the same grade that it got from most fans. It's about a 66% favorable rating on IMDb. And Resolute Germ, I did not get to say hello. Sorry. Greetings.
How you doing, Admiral?
Good to see you. I'm doing well. Older.
Dan Ben says, so the Catwalk is inside of the warp nacelles. Yes. Yes, it is indeed. John DeMarco says, happy birthday to you, Admiral.
Yes, I thank everyone, Joseph Dredd and John DeMarco, and anyone else who might have said it. I'm crawling through the chat now to look. Thank you, Jim. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, Jim, Joseph Dredd, John DeMarco is surely the best of times.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
And Joseph says, like everything else, everything is better in Klingon. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Dan Ben says, sometimes some people read what I say. I feel like I didn't write it so well. It could be the reader. It could often be myself, Dan Ben.
If I may be so bold, anyone who thinks they can read really well, until you've gone on here and done this live, honestly, like my ability to read drops by 30%. It's just for whatever reason, when you're doing two things at once and trying to read, something gets shorted.
Jim's Landscape puts in a bunch of happy birthday emojis. Admiral Teague, on my way, 1953. Wow. Dan Ben thinks it was a TNG episode where we saw the inside of the warp nacelles. I don't recall it if there was, but it very well might be.
There was one where they're at the end, the one where Troy's hallucinating most of the time about a murder.
That's the one I'm thinking of. It's like at seasons 5 or 6, right? It's like they're really trying to like develop a character. It was after the way I remember the episode though is she has her uniform, her regular post Jellicoe uniform.
He starts making out with Worf in the dream or something.
I think that's where the romance gets started. That was a red herring.
Yeah, that was only a dream.
It was a red herring at the time.
Yeah.
That's a good episode, though. A little dark for Star Trek, but, just procedural detective story in the Star Trek world. And we found out that, Deanna does useful things here and there on the ship.
John Araki with a $1 super chat. Thank you so much, John Araki. John DeMarco says, yes, Eye of the Beholder. Dan Ben says, thank you. John says, at first we saw the inside of the nacelles was an episode of the animated series. Yes. John Araki says the guy kills himself and jumps into the nacelles. Well, the nacelle so much as a plasma conduit or something. I don't know. Joseph Dredd says the murder with the half psychic. Yeah. He self-deletes at the Utopia Planitia facility. He did, right. When the Enterprise was being built, one of the engineers jumps, can't take it anymore due to some type of lover's triangle thing going on. Oh, well. At least we've come so far that nothing like that ever happens anymore. Oh, wait. Anyway, today let's get started with Enterprise Catwalk. We're going to watch in the screening room. Go to birdofprey5.com/SR, and I will start the stream in just a minute or two. If you're watching this later after the fact, after this stream is over, then you can't watch in the screening room. You'll have to get your own copy. Admiral Teague dropped out. Maybe he'll be back. You have to get your own copy of the episode somewhere. You can find it streaming on Paramount Plus or perhaps some other streaming services if you have, or Blu-ray or DVD. Arabic Sonder, Qapla Arabic Sonder, welcome to the chat. Okay, so we're going to head to the screening room and I will count down and we'll hit play in just a few minutes, a minute or so. Resolute, anything you want to say before we get started?
Yep. Let's start it.
And we will. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Oops.
No worries. Welcome back, Admiral.
Thank you.
Five times deeper than the Grand Canyon. There. Very happy to get down to this planet. Alien vessel approaching and hailing. We're very relieved that you speak English. I know the translator works.
Yeah, they forgot that Hoshi needs to run it through.
Well, then just get out of the way of the storm. It clearly can't take up all of space in all directions.
Hey, Bird, where are you in the episode? Oh, okay.
The theme song just started playing.
I wasn't sure if I was out of sync or not because I fell off the internet.
Right. Sorry about that. Yeah, we started just as you came back on.
Cool. Perfect.
I've got faith of the heart.
Of the heart. Knowing my heart will take me.
The astronauts are just.
I found this inspiring. I was mad that people didn't like this. I was like,
oh, I hated it when it first came out. I was like, what the hell is this? This isn't Star Trek.
I wasn't ready to defend the opening, but I was like, the show is so much better than what we've gotten in a while and better than the movie. I really thought this was an improvement for the franchise.
Dan Ben says they could have done this type of episode on Voyager. Well, except Voyager travels at pretty high warp.
But not 70 times. We figured it out. The Orville's 77 times faster.
Really?
Yeah, they gave the speed of the
10 light years per hour or something.
And then we have the distance and the time calculated in the episode of Voyager, and PDB did the math. So the Orville's much faster.
Three minutes.
Yeah.
And DeMarco says ship only goes warp 5. No problem. Just jump on one of those shuttles that can cross the quadrant in a few days.
Now, are you an adherent to book canon, or do you believe in the warp recalibration that we never hear about on screen?
Just the recalibration that we never hear about.
You believe in it, though, right?
Well, it clearly has to happen because, I mean, in TOS, they're going warp 13.
Right.
Times.
Well, they get help from these super advanced aliens.
Right, but just the very fact that warp 13 is a number that exists, whereas in TNG, warp 10 is infinite speed.
Only in the Delta Quadrant. We get a different definition everywhere else. The Voyager writers seem to not know what warp 10 is something I felt strongly after that episode.
I think they understood it. They just didn't understand that it's infinite speed and not a barrier.
They described
there's a difference between a barrier and an infinity.
Dare I say they described it as everything everywhere all at once?
Which is a fair way of describing infinite speed. You could theoretically occupy everywhere in the entire universe at the same time.
But then what about time? travel. I mean, yes, you're everywhere at the same instant, but
Well, time really kind of stops. I don't know.
But can you rewind it? You know, that starts to beg questions. Like if the Enterprise D does a slingshot maneuver, right? It's going to go warp 13.
I don't know, because warp is like only capable in subspace, not real space.
And then later Star Trek, you need a temporal Borg wake to travel time. You don't use the slingshot maneuver.
That is true, but one might argue it's only true because it's incredibly difficult to determine where you're going to end up.
I started giggling during the temporal wake. It was so convenient.
Joseph dreads that I thought the NX-01 got up to warp 5.5. Not easily.
We could probably slingshot this ship too. T'Pol's pretty smart. Dan Ben makes an interesting point about warp 10.
Well, that was the future where they presumably recalculated the warp scale again.
Most likely a fake future that Q was just generating.
Or an alternate future that never.
No, it's
came to
more.
pass.
It's the most real future we've seen because I've seen 3 other futures from that, and I hated them all. I
Fair
like the
enough.
all good things future best. Now you see, can I just say now that's a cat suit?
Now, if that was moving at warp 7, it would have immediately overtaken it. If you're speaking, Admiral, you seem to be muted.
I said I like lines from that from a starship captain.
Gotcha. Qapla writer Albert Lehner says maybe the writers thought warp was like the movie Spaceballs. Ludicrous speed. It's possible.
I think Mel Brooks liked Star Trek and paid attention.
Hello, the lovely Sherry.
Hello.
And John DeMarco says the warp scale is probably recalibrated periodically to keep up with achievements in warp drive. I would think once a generation or so. I mean, it's not the wisest thing, but
I
it
believe
makes the most sense.
I believe that TOS Warp 9 is TNG Warp 9. But I'm a little bit of an orthodox Trekkie on that one.
And Dan Ben says the motion picture, they go to warp 0, then increase speeds towards warp 1. Yeah, they do.
And then the engines aren't balanced very well, we find out. Hats off to the background casting director who picked all these people who were able to nail it as crew members in that speech by Archer and help sell it.
Or Porthos.
Any problems I had with Porthos went away when J.J. Abrams started having problems with him. That's when he became my favorite dog ever.
Thank you for going through my personal papers.
That was so much more believable and futuristic than any kind of hygiene we've seen in New Trek.
Agreed.
Star Trek should visualize future ideas, and we just saw it. We just saw it decently done. I'm loving this episode.
Although if you tell New Trek to show us future hygiene, they're going to pull out a future tampon on us.
No, I remember
exactly.
Steinmetz and his buddy, the doctor, brush their teeth together a few times. So they bond, and they just wave things in front of their face. And when they shave, they wave things next to their face. It's really unbelievable. And there's no added effect like we got with Hoshi's What do we know except that she was electroflossing, right? That might not have been the whole routine. That might have been like gum for them. And of course, I like it when Hoshi's on camera.
Of course. Dan Ben says there's an episode of Discovery where Stamets uses a kind of electric toothbrush. Well,
yeah, it's the first episode or the second episode, and it's before the Doctor dies and becomes a dream. So we see them both doing it, I believe, but there's no effect. They just wave like a wand in front of their mouths. It's so stupid. It looks like a pregnancy test.
John DeMarco says you can count on doctor-patient confidentiality unless Hoshi is researching your favorite food. Which for Mr. Reed is pineapple, right? Pineapple.
They put off really committing to any traits onto Reed for so long that when they did it, they were better writers, and even though it was late, they made a good character out of him, I thought, by the end of the show.
I think they may have waited a bit too long, though. He's a bit neurotic by that point.
Yeah, like sometimes he's just fussy in English and there's nothing more to him. But in like Shuttle Pod 1, there's an episode where he's actually great.
He was really interested in T'Pol's bum from the very beginning.
Well, they're going to die, right?
Who wasn't?
Can I just say, as a person who reviews New Trek, and I thank you for allowing talk of that horrible stuff here, and I apologize for invoking it during and tarnishing the good name of Roddenberry, or at least Braga. But, the cat suit in Strange New Worlds, I'm ready to call that out as just a baggy jumpsuit. Last week she wore drapes and she looks the best she's ever looked. She's very alluring.
John DeMarco says the fun fact that Cos 1 is a reference to Yesteryear from the animated series.
Wow. So is when she brings up her pet Sealot. It can't be good for the ship to have the captain and the first mate side by side in case the ship gets hit or something.
True, but considering they're all in the same nacelle.
I would have put them in both nacelles as well. I don't know if you're doubling your chances or doubling your risk. You tell me.
Yeah, I don't know if they had some way of communicating. You
That
would
might have been
think
the
like
issue.
wireless should work, but
I would have been like, to Paul, this is your moment. Command the port nacelle. I'll command the starboard. You know, if one of us gets it, the crew needs the other one really bad. You know.
I'd be in the one with the doctor just
Yes.
in case.
I'll keep Dr. Phlox with me, to Paul. Good luck. He can't really help you anyway. I scalded
This is the
myself
closest we see the chef.
till we really see too much of him. I scalded myself in the sonic shower again this morning. She's angry when she's beautiful. Spacesuits are a thing. Put one on. Go in there. Knock 'em dead, Trip.
Those doors are really pretty small.
They're showing off their set, though. It's pretty nice. It's one of the nicest, most extensive sets we get.
Hope you're going to find a phaser.
I kind of like that they had a more archaic term, right? They're phase pistols in this show.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Point is, needs to go find a gun.
Oh no, point well taken. I love those little touches. Polarize the hull plating. This is a phase pistol. Remember when they have to learn how to use them? I don't know. I like these little touches in Enterprise. Identity theft is one of America's fastest growing crimes.
Now, this scene is lit like Star Trek Picard. It's to say.
Yeah, but
barely.
their dialogue made sense though, which
That's true. And somehow they were still more visible.
yeah. When it wasn't self-contradicting nonsense, we knew we were still in a real Star Trek show. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, it was dark. And I guess these guys have no problem with the radiation that would mess everyone else up, or it was a red herring? Now in New Trek, they just phase one of them down and say, "Who's going to tell me the truth?" See, these aliens don't know about stun. I pretend to waste one right now and get the others talking. How about you?
Fair enough.
I'll have some damn answers right now.
Done them all. Let God sort it out.
Like I said, in New Trek, they would just delete one of them and be like, "Who's going to tell the truth now?" Did anyone catch how many executive producers this show had?
How many what? Executive producers?
Producers and executive producers. It takes 21 to give us New Trek.
$13 total producers for this episode. Not quite as bad. Still a little heavy.
I am a complete sucker for when Starfleet people act military. That's what I wanted him to say. That looks so cool.
That, I believe, is the effect they used for the Badlands, just with the color change.
If so, I mean, bravo, great use of budget. I thought it looked really cool.
And the aliens
weird.
decided not to come back for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I don't know. This episode's good, but there's some beautiful parts about it. But the logic of the bad guys.
Well, Archer proved to be crazy, and you don't want to deal with crazy.
Yeah, he used madman theory to bluff them off the ship. It was almost a Kirk-like move.
Dan Ben says, is there an explanation for why they didn't know people had come aboard the ship? I guess nobody thought to set up an alarm system.
Trip was spending all his time on other things instead of security because they were worried about a storm that was supposedly unnavigable, right?
Yeah, they only had 4 hours.
And these lawyers didn't tell them that they could go out there into the radiation with no protection. It wouldn't bother them because apparently their brother aliens were fine.
Yeah.
It just goes to show you Trip is a bad engineer.
He's like, I got to get a toilet up. I don't have time to check for things like the security of the integrity of the ship. It's like, replicator kitty litter.
Time to give Porthos a walk. That was it. That was season 2, episode 12. The Catwalk. LDG says, thank God they didn't hide in the transporter buffer. Yeah. Well, I don't think you could hide the whole crew in the transporter buffer. So maybe you could. Cody Guy waves. Hey, Cody Guy.
I guess the way to look at it is this led to things like being able to flood the ship with gas, the remote bridge, you know what I mean? The auxiliary bridge, this like things that like naive design flaws like this necessitated it.
To a point, yeah. Get a little bit more money into the ships.
Well,
you can do all the nice little bells and whistles like a second bridge.
Whenever they retrofit the next ship or even this one, they're like, remember that time that somebody made a bid to steal it? What about if we have like a way to flood the ship with gas that only the captain knows the pin code to? You know, like ultimately leading up to something like we see in Wrath of Khan, where they take control of Khan's helm with Khan's ship's controls with their ship's controls using basically a pin code.
That never really made sense.
I kind of get it. They were able to override because Kirk, as an admiral, they counted on the idea that Khan wouldn't be totally read in, and he wasn't. He was behind a little bit. And also, one thing in that movie that speaks to motive is if you notice when Kirk fires at Khan, he fires at the bridge and the weapons. When Khan fires at Kirk, he fires at the engines and stuff. He's trying to disable and slow down the Enterprise. He wants to chop up Captain Kirk more than he wants to win this engagement. And even Joaquin as much as says so. Captain Kirk is far more fatal in his intentions.
Yvette says, thank you, Bird. I enjoyed that and remembered it. Awesome, Yvette. She only remembers the episodes she liked a bit. Dan Ben says, it's mentioned that I could have used sick bay, but not everyone would fit. Well, there was sick bay had the most shielding amongst the rest of the ship. But
that's why next time we hit this storm, there's going to be a rapid deployment force of all security volunteers in sick bay ready to charge the bridge.
Yeah, and I don't know that sick bay would have been as heavily shielded.
You'll get double pay, guys. Don't worry.
LDG says, wonder what necessities the bridge air lock in Picard. Wonder what necessitated the bridge airlock in Picard. Yes, that airlock in the bridge view screen.
I would say a need to rip off the movie Event Horizon was probably the most important part in thinking that up.
Fair. Dan Van liked the episode. And yes, Dan Van meant they.
Like,
no problem.
In comparison to what we get now, I would pay a reasonable fee to go to a medieval times like dinner theater if there's like a symphony to see this episode performed as a play. That's how much better it is than New Trek. I prefer something a little more action-packed like Gamesters of Triskelion, but this was this was absolute Shakespeare. So I guess I'll hold back my rating till you ask, but I really enjoyed this as far as good amount of dramatic tension.
Well,
only a couple
free
of
to put in the rating now because
how about
it's not going to be much longer.
Just a 7.
7, yeah, that seems to be
fair.
the consensus.
A couple of logical flaws here and there, but nothing major. Like my rule for Star Trek is mostly makes sense. There's always going to be a few things. If anything, it suffered from one too many ticking clocks.
Yeah. Dan Ben says they go back to the Catwalk in another season 2 episode. Yeah, I do believe we re-see this set in a future episode, which is fair. I mean, they make the set, they might as well use it.
You know what? Right Said Fred was big that year. They heard that line about strutting your catsuit on the catwalk. They're like, we want T'Pol on a catwalk. Let's make it happen.
Resolute, what's your thoughts? Anything?
Pretty decent episode. Not the best, not the worst. But the too many ticking clocks was a drawback. Thankfully, it wasn't for too long.
Too much shared DNA with Starship. Is it Enterprise Mine or Starship Mine? The first time we see Tuvok, he's a slick intergalactic starship hustler who's stealing the trilithium resin from the inside of the Enterprise with some other people.
Would have been Starship, I guess.
You know what I'm talking about, right? I'm not the Baba. And there's a tachyon scan. It's going to sweep the ship clean, much the way they scrape barnacles off the hull of like 19th century sailing ships. And it's fatal. You can't be in there when it happens.
Oh, that's
outrunning.
The carry-on sweep.
It's TNG, but the episode
TNG.
Only really has the captain after the first 10 minutes until the last.
Oh, I
2
see. When you
minutes.
say Tuvok, he's not playing.
We meet
Tuvok.
Tuvok.
Right.
Maybe I buffered there. I said
I
said in his first role as a slick interstellar he was a terrorist or an arms like he just acquired weapons for terror. I guess he was a mad scientist henchman.
But he was
a thief.
Human.
And I liked that little trick ending at the end of that one. But yeah, maybe a little too much shared DNA with that one, but not to the point of really hurting this story.
Dan Ben says Starship, Mine Star, Star Trek, the next Starship Mine, Star Trek, the Next Generation, season 6, episode 18.
See, when I saw that title, I thought they were going to find a mine filled with starships.
That one I was a bit confused. Like, do they really not know what the captain looks like? Does nobody have a picture of Captain Picard? Like
these guys don't do
you.
research.
I'm the barber. Sure you are, old man.
You know what? When you say it that way, and seeing what we've seen of Picard now, we know that he can come off meek and undangerous and dismissible. We have 30 episodes of a show where he's weak and ineffectual and it's just not to be taken seriously. I can see how they were just like, yeah, okay, he's definitely the barber. Now,
Yeah.
then it seems like acting.
True enough. And now in real life, he's saying he
God.
wants another movie.
I saw that. That's what getting Star Trek
Oh
14.
my God.
You know who the writer is on that project still, allegedly was, I don't know if they've taken them off of it, but it was the writer for Captain Marvel, the one that the most divisive movie of all time. It was, and she had written also like the first Tomb Raider and wasn't asked to come back.
I shook my head. I was like, no, this can't be real, is it? And it was. And it wasn't just Patrick Stewart. LeVar Burton was right there with him.
I think my response was, robots say what? I don't give a shit about that robot anymore. I'm so tired of his admonishing me for once having looked up to him that I have developed some contempt for Patrick Stewart. New Trek is really it's bad for the old. The only good news is that they do such a bad job trying to subvert TOS that SNW is far, far less divisive and toxic. If you're not doing anything tomorrow, you should come by and watch it with me and Captain Fandom Nerd.
I do my own watch and review, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. But should you ever want to, if you want to join us on the Sunday night show and talk about it, you're more than welcome on Saving Star Trek.
I appreciate it. Well, guys, I think we're going to end up calling it here. Admiral, anything you want to say before we go?
Thank you very much for having me. This is what we do. Saving Star Trek also includes celebrating when it was good. That was good fun there, huh? Good time at the final frontier. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. And I'm Admiral T. Consider subbing my channel. And, hit that like button for Bird. This is a great show.
Thank you. Resolute, anything you want to say before we go?
Just glad I could be here for another one of the top episodes. Seems to happen every time I manage to be here.
I appreciate that.
You know what?
LDG says Baryon scan and Tupac episode.
That's what it was called, the Baryon scan, and it was Tim Russ.
John DeMarco says, have a good evening all. Take care, John. And Joseph Dredd says, thanks. You are most welcome. Thank you, Admiral. Thank you, Resolute. Thank you, everyone who hung out. Thank you, John Araki and Admiral T for the super chats earlier. Greatly appreciated. And tomorrow sometime I will hopefully release a review of Strange New World Season 2, Episode 2. Assuming it doesn't get the best of me. But,
just have some bourbon and Pepto on hand.
Let's talk about making sure that we don't overstream each other. I don't want to step on you there, buddy.
I don't stream. I just put out the review.
Oh, you do the upload?
When I just upload it.
Fair enough. Cool.
And I just do it when I get it done. It could be any time between noon and honestly the next day.
I haven't nailed down the exact time to start my Saving Star Trek live watches. Sometimes it's opportunistic. When I can, I try to get near drive time Eastern. So,
I don't worry about it. I don't. When it's done, it's done. It's out. I don't worry.
Well, I really hate new Star Trek. So what I do is I use the Rolling Stones reviewing method. It's one hit to the body and one straight from the heart. So I live watch it, and that's just, we don't really pause it. I just think about it, and I make a few notes. And then the next day, we will just kind of go through it more analytically with PDB and Dark Helmet and just see if it fits in. And then we watch something uplifting to get the taste of it out of our mouths. But so far, last week, we learned that you can solve all your problems with drugs, and there are no consequences, and that only Chapel can hurt herself because after all that fighting with all those Klingons, all she had was a bloody nose from her PEDs.
Did she even have that? I didn't even.
I think she had a bloody nose, and I think no one laid a glove on her. And one of the other people.
I'm sure she hurt her hand from hitting that guy kind of hard.
Well, yeah, because
it was wearing off.
one of the only things that was another thing. Did you notice that it also gave you greater bone density because they hit her like 5 times with a pipe?
Oh yeah.
And she just fended it off with her arms.
Like
And
somehow it increased her mass.
And
she was able to punch something that was 3 times as heavy as her, but
and she really overpowered those
they
Klingons. You know,
instead of her.
She fought like Keanu Reeves, and Dr. Mabanga fought like I don't know, like a 10-year-old. I mean, he barely keeps one Klingon occupied while Christine just wraps the rest of them around that room and beats them down. And she just like overpowers them, and he's just basically like, oh, I'm a science man who loves to fish. I can't fight too
Mabanga
good.
got in a few pretty hard chops. Like I thought he may have even killed a couple of them.
You know what?
Like, chops to the neck.
I think the thing is that once she went girl boss, there was a point there where he was just tangling with maybe the last one of the guys that he went after, and she just is extendedly beating people down, and then ends it, I think, by bailing him out. But I know when all is said and done, yeah, she only ended up hurting herself, and the only damage is a bloody nose, and I think that's from the PEDs, because they like shoot light up their nose or snort them or something like that. Their noses are involved in the PEDs. Be like Alex Rodriguez. That's what they tell you. Jose Canseco, admirable person. That's the message of New Trek. Captain Pete Rose here with the service announcement for everybody in New Trek land.
Okay, guys, with that, Qapla All and Bird panel out.